You don't cook. I mean, I see pizza boxes everywhere. What's the deal with that?
Well, I mean, I've had pizza like a couple days in a row, maybe 2 or 3 now, I think, say abouts. You know, that minimum wage hike has really been benefiting me for the better, as far as I'm concerned. No cooking in my kitchen.
Dish, dish, dish.
Hey y'all, it's Onika
and J.R.
and you are dishing with DaintyDysh. How you doing, J.R., other than criticizing my pizza habits?
I'm doing better than the franchise owners.
Franchise owners? And why is that?
Well, with the increase in costs to minimum wage, they're losing margin.
You're going to have to explain all this to me because honestly, I am hippity hip hop happy about this minimum wage increase. I've been waiting for January 1st and it finally arrived like it was the Christmas after Christmas.
You're like, more money. I get more money now.
Yeah, well, I work hard. I deserve it.
I don't know. I guess I agree with a minimum wage increase, but the increase that was given was quite large. I mean, who absorbs that? The employer and the customer. And I mean, you saw the grocery stores over the last few months. You saw the prices increase.
Yeah, I've seen it to the point where I don't even go grocery shopping anymore. I just order pizzas. I'm like, forget about it. I'm not even doing it anymore. Forget it.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know. Going up, what was it, like $2-3 it went up?
Yeah, like
$2.50 to something.
What at the
like the minimum wage? What
minimum wage went up $2. Like no, like $3.
$3?
I think $11.75 was minimum wage before.
And now it's what, 14?
14.
Okay,
so it's going to be 15 in a year. From what rumors have
That's a lot. That's a lot of money per employee per hour. Like if you break it down, you know, like that's a lot. That could be a lot of money for a business. You're looking at about maybe like $6-7 grand a year increase for a full-time employee. And if you have a Tim Hortons where you got like 30-40 employees, that's a huge chunk of cash.
That's true.
You know, what's the point of being in business as a franchisee if you're not gonna make money? I mean, if you're gonna bring home, you know, $30K in profits off of your store, what's the point of having the store and going through all the problems and dealing with that store and operating that store?
I mean, you make a valid point, but again, from the employee's perspective, at least those that keep their jobs, like I think there should be concern right now with things like layoffs and, you know, lack of hours given in certain positions. I know there's something going on with the restaurants. I think you had mentioned that to me.
Yeah, I heard that tip outs were now being increased, the percentage at some places, which is crazy. I remember when I was serving, it was like about 3% maybe, and I'm hearing some places now are going up to 5%, which is, you know, it's a chunk of change.
It is.
You know, when you're living off of that, and even the restaurants, I guess as a whole, I mean, the kitchen staff don't really make that much money either. And you know, at one point, I guess $14 an hour might have been like a really decent wage per se in the kitchen, but now that's, you know, that's everyone's wage. I mean, for the most part, I mean, you're really just shrinking the middle class.
Is that what you think? It's like going to shrink the middle class?
Yeah, I think that's what you're doing. I mean, at one point, I remember when I was in school, like, you know, the $15 an hour job was a coveted job when you're as a student, you know.
Yeah.
And if you can get a $20 an hour job, it's like, oh my gosh,
you're just living life.
Today's the day, you know. But now that's the baseline. And I don't think companies are going to go out there and increase everybody's wages, right?
Yeah.
You're just going to increase what you have to do at the bottom. So now you've just shrunk that group of people that, you know, we're making
like
money
differentiated by
yeah. But I mean, like, at the end of the day, we shouldn't have to have people
differentiated in that way
in the first place. But I don't know. It's one of those things that I don't know which way do you really tackle something like this? Like when it comes to, you know, providing for people and society, and I don't know.
I mean, is it Kathleen Wynn?
We haven't figured that out yet.
Yeah, we keep saying Catherine or Kathleen. We can't really. I mean, it's not that we're not informed. We just look it up real quick, please. Yeah. So I think she had the right idea, but I think what you had mentioned about like incremental raise.
Like I remember when I was the last time I made minimum wage, I think it was like, was it $6.85 or something like that, $6.50, something like along those lines. And they did that incremental increase where it was like 25 cents per year, or 50 cents per year for like 4 years. I can understand you like wanting to get to $15 an hour. I mean, there is a need out there for people to make a living wage, and I just don't think that it's the right way for the government to come in and say, hey, businesses, you now got to pay everybody this much, and you got to do it by this date. You know, it's just that's kind of tough. I mean, from a business standpoint, I mean, that's like.
But businesses saw this coming for a little while. Like, was there not a way, in your opinion, to prepare for what was coming, or is the layoffs and the lower shifts and the taking away benefits, like, is that the only solution that they could come up with?
Well, here's the thing: a large segment of the people that are in minimum wage jobs are in the service industry and hospitality, and those are the industries where and retail, and those industries where, you know, we as consumers, we visit and we spend our money. So for someone who was making above $15 an hour before, their money now buys less, because the only way for a business to be successful in this time is to either increase prices, which are reflected to the customer, the consumer, or absorb the cost themselves, which means less profits for you. I don't see another way to
solve the issue.
To solve the issue, it's so. Right now, we're seeing it in hospitality and retail and whatnot. But I mean, my parents' condo fees, they went up. There was a larger increase than usual in those condo fees, because a lot of people that clean the building and, you know, maintain the building are minimum wage employees. So the minimum wage increase is, you're seeing costs increase across the board.
Well, I haven't gotten my first post increase check quite yet. But I'm interested to see. I've calculated it. Everyone's doing the calculations at work. We're all doing it. We're excited as shit. So like for this like $2 increase, and we calculate it's like another like, you know, $27 a day if you're working like an 8.5-hour shift. So everyone's kind of excited to see it. But I think we're starting to see the change with the hours. Like not as many people are getting as many hours.
Well, you're going to see the removal of the part-time employee.
Yeah.
Or you're going to see an increase in part-time employees.
I think there's going to be an increase in part-time employees.
Full-time
employment. You have to give them benefits.
Mm-hmm.
There'll be an increase in part-time employees. For sure, because full-time gets benefits usually, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, even at the Tim Hortons, I was reading an article where they were saying that the Tim Hortons was even cutting benefits for their employees because of this increased cost. Because even though you're seeing your wage increase by only like $2 or two whatever. Yeah. There's other costs that are associated with paying an employee, you know, insurance premiums and whatnot. So you might only be seeing $2.50, or well, after taxes, you might only be seeing like $1 and change, but the employer has to pay probably about $3.50 in costs with that increase.
Or something like that.
Or something like that along those lines. It's Kathleen.
Sorry, Miss Wynn. Now we have your name right. We won't do it again. Kathleen Wynn. Yeah, this was a bold decision.
Yeah, I mean, I
bold. I think on her part, very ballsy, and I dig it. I'm sorry, I dig it.
Yeah,
I dig this move.
from that perspective, absolutely. But yeah, like, at the same time, it's like you're feeling pressure, and now you're like, okay, let's give my base, the people that are gonna vote for me.
Yeah.
Let's give them a little something,
an extra incentive to vote for me, to continue to vote for me.
And by the time they figure out that this is probably not the best thing, they're just going to be in the same situation they were in before. As a matter of fact, there's going to be more people in this lower income bracket now. I will have gained re-election, or I will be gone.
True.
One or the other.
True.
Because what happens now for everyone that was making $14, $15 an hour, $16 an hour?
They're now in this pool of people, of minimum wage workers, when they were like above minimum wage.
They were above, you know, the groceries. a dozen eggs was still $2 maybe. I don't know how much eggs
A
cost.
dozen eggs was $1.87 at Food Basics, and now it's like $2.87 or something like that.
Really?
I feel like it's increased by like at least $1. It's one of the reasons I don't even buy eggs anymore, man. Like,
Yeah, you're a big egg person.
I love eggs. You know how much I love eggs. Yeah, so I'm just like, everything is going up. You can see it slowly but surely happening. I just wonder what this is all going to look like when it finally does implode on itself.
Automation.
Automation? Is that what you think?
Yeah, huge.
Explain yourself, please, to the listening audience who might not know what you're talking about.
Oh, there'll be computers to do tasks. As soon as we can figure out how to create a procedure for a specific task, we'll automate it and remove people. Look what McDonald's was doing. They started putting up those kiosks.
Yeah, that's true.
And a friend of mine told me that they had a promotion where if you ordered your meal from your phone, there was a huge discount. It was like Big Macs for $1 or something like that.
Oh my gosh.
So I mean, these corporations aren't dumb. They're just saying, okay, yeah, government, it's a chess game, right? So, you want us to pay more money for our employees? No problem. You want to cut into our profits? No problem. We're gonna build these systems that can do the work of the employee, so we can have less employees here. Because I mean, I don't know about you, but I would prefer to order from a machine. Reason being,
Human error.
Sometimes I'm ordering something, I'm talking, and the person hears me, but they're not listening, and then the order's wrong. Now, I mean, it's McDonald's or something. I don't really care. It's not that big. I'm not gonna go crazy, but still, I want it my way.
Yeah, like the slogan says.
Yeah, is that their slogan, or is that
It used to
somebody
be,
else's?
have it your way.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I get that, but we're always going to need people. Like,
Yeah, but
and
the
that's
roles will change. I just think, I don't think automation is going to get rid of jobs per se overall. I think that the roles people play in the workforce is just going to change, and we're going to have to adapt. And you're going to need more people that are analytical and have technical skill. That's it.
But like I said, I'm excited to see that first check. I want to know what that's going to look like and feel like going forward. And I know I'm going to say my spending habits aren't going to increase, but that's another thing we have to think about. You know, as consumers, once we're making that extra money, we're not saying let's put that extra $2 in savings and pretend we're still making minimum wage.
But how can you if you were living paycheck to paycheck before?
I mean, I don't know how you really can. Like, I basically, because I'm like the starving artist, like writer, go to work, but I live paycheck to paycheck basically. So I don't know if that's really in actuality going to change because of this $2 increase. Like, I don't think anything's really going to change in my lifestyle, but I'm still going to be in the same situation that I was in before with just a $2 increase.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'll still be the starving artist. And I'll still be living paycheck to paycheck. Because that money's going to be absorbed into something somehow.
Yeah, your taxes.
Yeah.
The increased cost of living.
Yeah, they raised my rent this year.
Of course. Why not?
I think they do it every 2 years anyways, but this was the year that I got snipped because I didn't get snipped that first year. So they raised rent.
Yeah, rent goes up every year for most people.
Oh, well, this is the first time I've lived in an apartment. I usually used to live in basement apartments, so yeah. I did not know that. But things are just
every year, buddy.
Up. I think it's every 2 years here, actually.
Oh, okay. That's interesting.
Yeah, I don't know why. It just is.
So with this, you were saying earlier that there's a lot of people in your organization or who you work with that you guys are you're talking about this increase. I know off air we were just briefly chatting about it, and something that was interesting to me was that you had mentioned that most of the people that were working in your industry are women.
Yes. And
is it safe to say the majority of minimum wage workers are women? Because I'm thinking about a lot of the areas where there are minimum wage workers, and they're in retail, hospitality and tourism. So maids and servers, bartenders.
Women in the workforce, it's a huge thing. Especially in those minimum wage positions.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think like There's like maybe 3 or 4 guys that I work with,
Mm-hmm.
but everybody else is female. They're all very young, but if I was in an environment with women my own age, 35, I think there'd be more opportunity to see the two types of women that do work in the workforce, which are the women that do have families and the women that don't have families, and the difference.
Mm-hmm.
The difference between how those two groups of women are treated within the workforce. Working mothers, there were some facts I remember reading. It was, again, Psychology Today. I love Psychology Today, guys. So it was saying in 1975, 45% of women were working mothers. But by 2012, which has stayed, according to the Department of Labor in the U.S., it stayed at a solid 70% of women working in the workforce that have families. And they're growing families. So how are these women being treated in comparison to women who climb the corporate ladder that choose not to have children? And the overall consensus seems to be, I don't want to use the word discrimination because that's not the right word, but there's a general lack of respect for some of these women because they have chosen to start these families. And there's also the patronizing concept, I like to call it, of the work-life balance that has arisen as a result of women wanting to have children and having careers. You could address the first.
Well,
I'm like, I gave you a lot right there.
Yeah,
I just threw out a lot, basically
okay.
the entire topic.
Okay.
But address the first.
And the first, which one's the first? Which one do you want?
They're being treated differently in the workforce. It's called
okay, so
workplace incivility.
Let's look at this from a productivity perspective then. You've got 2 employees. They start on the same day. They both start off in, I'll use IT as an example because I'm more familiar with that. They both start off in the service desk, the help desk. 2 years in, one of them takes a leave for a year. The other one works that year, gets promoted. The first employee comes back. They're put back into their same position, and the cycle continues again. That employee leaves for another year, and while the other employee is gaining recognition and promotions. From productivity perspective, the first person has been there the whole time within the company corporate culture. They've seen the changes. They've been included. They're involved in the day-to-day operations of the company. The second person has been there but has left, and then came back and then left. So they're not really involved from productivity perspective in that organization day to day over a long period of time.
Okay. Well, make both of those people women instead of making one a man and one a woman. And look at it from that. That's what I'm talking about with the groups that are now separated. Women are made to believe, and some women might really not appreciate me saying this, but we're made to believe that we can have it all.
Well, my last working experience, there was a large majority of executives that were women, and these women had children, and they were, from my vantage point, they were successful. So I don't see where you're going, where you're saying like they can't have it all. I've seen these women that have one, maybe 2 children, and they're executives, and they're. It's
not. It's like when I say all is in they can give their 100% to everything.
But you can't give your 100% to everything.
You can't give your 100% to everything. Your job, your marriage, your children, something at the end of the day suffers. But then they create what I had mentioned to you before, corporate. It's becoming a part of corporate cultures where for women, they have to have work-life balance. And it's kind of a condescending concept because we don't see men needing a work-life balance between their work and their family lives. I
disagree with that.
There's not necessarily when you hear work-life balance, you automatically think of women.
When you just said work-life balance, I thought of myself as a millennial. Like I think of work-life balance. I'm not working for you unless I get 3 weeks or 4 weeks vacation. Like that's where I am at a point now. I'm, I need a work-life balance. I don't want to be, or are you flexible in allowing me to, work from home? That's what I look for, work-life balance. I mean, I just don't see the purpose of being confined to this office space if I don't need to be. Right. So when I think of work-life balance, I think of more of a selfish. I think of more being selfish about it. I mean, I think of my work-life balance personally. I never really moved towards it being a more woman thing. But
in the industry that I was previously in, we've talked about it before, being in event management. I noticed something very, very early on when I was starting to do things like volunteering and doing internships. At a certain organization that I was working with, a lot of the women were very, very young. They're around my age, in their late 20s, early 30s, hungry, were able to travel a lot, were able to give 100% basically of their lives to the job and to what the job needed, and then you start noticing one or two get engaged, then they get married. I'd met a woman who was working at that organization. She had a baby. She ended up having to switch organizations because it was to the job of itself and what they required of her, the traveling, the program creation, et cetera, was too much. So she needed to find a place that would respect the work-life balance. But what I think suffered at the end of the day, because now she definitely has time for her children, but she's now making unilateral movements throughout her career. She's not necessarily climbing. I feel the climbing happens once the children get a little bit older. But once they're younger, it's very unilateral promotional situations for women.
This is going to seem ignorant, but why do you want a career?
Why do I want a career?
Why would a woman want a career?
Honestly, I don't know.
Because from my perspective, after my father's stroke, and I spent all that time in hospitals and rehab facilities and just hanging out with people in general, the one thing people always said was they wish they spent more time with their family. Like every single one of these people, I'm talking people on their deathbed, people who are recovering, they're like, I wish I spent more time with my family and I wasn't always preoccupied with my career. So I'm sitting back here saying, wait, you want to have a career?
That's the thing. Like for me, I always thought I wanted to have a career because it was the right thing to want. It was what was expected of me. Go to school, get a career, get a job or a career of some kind, and have some kids and live your life. That's the way. That was the life plan that my parents had laid out for me. But having a career, quote unquote, for that 1 year that I had a career 2 years ago or a year and a half ago, it was the stress of it all was too much. It ended up having an episode during that period of time. So what I learned is I need to have a stress-free, passion-filled life. So everything I do now, this podcast, my writing, anything, my poetry, anything I do, it's because I want to do it, not because there's some monetary value on it or I'm responsible for doing it as a result of someone instructing me to. Do I have a job that pays the bills? I do. But the minute it causes me any kind of stress, I'm bouncing. Like, that's my work-life balance. That's how I balance work and life. Like, I'm going to bounce. Like, it's just is what it is. Because I just think it's a myth. I don't think you could have work is hard and life is hard. Like, they're both equally difficult tasks, living life and working. Like, and there's so many other facets to a person's life other than work and just like life in general. There's so many facets to it. So there's so many things you have to do necessarily in a day that you may not be able to create that mystical, magical balance, and I think it's I use the word condescending again because it seems to often be directed at women because women are thought of as workers and caregivers once they do have children. So they're a worker and they're a caregiver. And for some reason, it's up to you. We're looking at you, woman, to balance both these tasks because that's now all that you are. And that to me is where the challenge lies with the concept of it and how organizations are starting to try to integrate this these programs for women to balance their lives. Like, I don't know. I don't get it.
Yeah, I mean, if I had the opportunity, I would be a stay-at-home dad. I'll take the life balance.
Yeah, I just feel like it makes women feel that they could have it all and give their 100% to everything, when in all reality, that's impossible. You can't do that. You have something's got to give. You're talking about the executives in your work. You're seeing them at work. You know, you're not seeing the sacrifices they make.
Absolutely, I'm not. I can't
it
speak
like
on that.
Having a nanny or a stay-at-home father or a caregiver for their children. You don't know how those children are being raised, because like work is a priority to them. Climbing the executive ladder is a priority to them. But again, we don't know what's going on in their life, just in their work. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What they're doing to balance work and make work.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's an interesting. I always found it an interesting concept, and I only started hearing about it in the last like 2 years, me personally, and it just doesn't seem to make much sense to me. So
do you think that we're being because of this whole 24/7 type environment that we're in order to accommodate that, we have to work all these times? Is that a problem?
I mean, if it's your choice to be on the 24-hour work cycle, then that's your choice. Like,
sometimes you don't have a choice. Well, you always have a choice. Sometimes the money's too good to say no to. That's what it is, really. Mm-hmm. But nobody should be on a 24-hour work cycle. Like, that's insane. There's zero balance there. Like, if there could be balance, it definitely wouldn't be in that cycle. So, well, I mean, what I'm speaking on is like maybe shift work, like maybe being like a nurse, 12 hours on, 12 hours off.
Yeah, my mom was a nurse, and she used to work the night shift, and she worked 12-hour overnight shift, and she'd get 2 days on, 1 day off, 2 days on, 1 day off, and then every other weekend off. So that worked for her, you know, and that basically, I mean, to a certain extent, it worked for the family. Mm-hmm. I also had my grandmother living with me as a caregiver, so she kind of picked up the slack in many respects. Because Papa Dainty was also working. So we had, you know, nursing is a unique one. I think it's one of the easier professions to have children in. I would also say teaching.
But you brought up an interesting fact that your grandmother was there when you were growing up, right? So you know that whole notion, it takes a village to raise a child.
Yeah.
Could it be that here in the West we're so concerned with having the nuclear family and not including, you know, other generations inside the home, that we are forced to now have to take on these careers to make more and more money in order to live the lifestyle, the Canadian dream?
Yeah, I would say yes. I mean, I grew up very West Indian. Like, it's very West Indian for your grandmother to be a part of your whole growth process. Like, that's standard, typical West Indian stuff. So I would never, I remember there was a period of time when I was younger, before my grandmother's moved to Canada, I had a babysitter. Mm-hmm. That was different. And new. It was a white lady named Pat. If I ever bump into her, I would love to do that again. But yeah, she was our babysitter, and she took us places and did things with us just like a regular babysitter would. So we had different types of caregiving. You know, I had different types of caregiving growing up, but that's how my mother had to try to balance things, by leaving me with a total stranger. Did she want to do that? Absolutely not. If she could have stayed at home with her kids, would she have? Absolutely. I think she would have. And, you know, been a stay-at-home mom. But we didn't have that choice, and a lot of people don't have that choice, unfortunately. So, I don't know. In regards to women in the workforce, that 70% is just going to continue to grow. And I think the trend that we're going to start seeing is more and more women not having kids. Like,
I'm meeting a lot of women that just in passing are like, nah, I'm going to pass on that.
They're focusing more on climbing that corporate ladder or following their passions and dreams. And, you know, they're starting to think maybe there's not enough room for children and family in that equation. Not necessarily husbands, but, you know, necessarily children in that equation. So I think we're going to see more of a push towards those kind of women dominating the workforce going forwards. It should be interesting. It should be interesting. I'm of the ilk that I don't think that kids are going to be in my future. I want to follow my passion. I want to give 100% to something.
It's also population control.
Yeah, it's all population control. There you go. Help control the population, as Bob would say. Yeah, no. So I can see myself falling in that vein as well. But with that said, that is the dish of the day. Yeah. I hope you enjoyed. For all of those people out there who have experienced the minimum wage increase, I think it's a positive thing. Please do write into us, positive or negative. Please do write into us.
Both.
For those that got their $2 pay increase that we've been waiting for years and years, holler. We're excited. Don't waste that first paycheck. But everybody else, like I said, just write in. JR, please tell them how they can reach us.
You can reach us at dysh, DYSH, at DaintyDysh.com. That's DAINTY, DYSH.com. You can check us out on our website at DaintyDysh.com. I love the way you put that in my face now. And I'm like, now it's like, I got this thing. I got it rolling. I don't need a list. I got it.
Sorry, boo-boo.
You can catch us on Facebook. Our page is DaintyDysh, DAINTYDYSH. On Instagram, you can follow Onika at Best of Onika. You can check her out on Snapchat at Onika Dainty as well. And I'm on Instagram, Best of JR. But the most important thing is continue to listen to us on Apple Podcasts, on SoundCloud, on YouTube, on whatever platform you prefer.
And rate us.
Yeah, if subscribe to us on YouTube, rate us on Apple Podcasts. I'm not sure what else you can do on the other platforms right off the top of my head.
But give us a 5. We deserve a 5. Give us a 5.
Yeah.
Give us a 5. Yeah.
That's it. I'm done.
You're done? You're good? Okay. With that said, I hope you all enjoyed the show and I hope you have a very happy hump day. Talk to you next week.